The case that we will be discussing today is Brown versus the Board of Education, which took place in Topeka, Kansas, and is a landmark civil rights case. This historic case was handed down by the Supreme Court in 1954 and ended segregation in United States schools.
By the early 1950s, segregation was cracking. Court rulings had begun dismantling racial barriers, but the biggest fight remained: desegregating elementary schools. The NAACP, led by Thurgood Marshall, took on segregation. 5 cases merged into Brown v. Board of Education. Oliver Brown, a father in Topeka, sued when his daughter was denied entry to a white school. The case reached the Supreme Court. Argued twice, it faced fierce opposition, but a shift occurred when Earl Warren became Chief Justice.
After the Civil War, efforts were being made to grant equal rights to African Americans. The Civil Rights Act of 1875 was an effort to ban racial discrimination in public places. But in 1883, it was struck down by the Supreme Court, and segregation persisted. In 1892, Homer Plessy challenged Louisiana's Separate Car Act by refusing to leave a whites-only railroad car. He was arrested and convicted, but his case still reached the Supreme Court. In 1896, the court ruled against Plessy in a 7-1 vote. Separate but equal facilities were constitutional, wrote Justice Henry Billings Brown. Only one justice, John Marshall Hart, disagreed, stating the decision would promote racial injustice. Plessy v. Ferguson made segregation lawful throughout the nation, opening the way for Jim Crow laws. It would take nearly 60 years for Brown v. Board of Education to overturn it, declaring that separate was never truly equal. Despite the landmark Brown v. Board ruling, Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools remained segregated. African American children still attended inferior facilities and received fewer opportunities. In the late 1960s, DJ Swan and other black parents, with the help of Julius Chambers and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, sued the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education, demanding true integration. The case was heard in the Supreme Court in 1971. The court unanimously decided that busing would be an appropriate method to obtain school desegregation, reiterating the fact that racial balance was imperative for equal education. Swan v. Charlotte-Mecklenburg revolutionized public schooling and turned busing into a prime instrument for desegregation. Despite its controversial nature, the decision revolutionized schools across America, moving the nation toward educational equality.
On May 17, 1954, history was made. Warren declared separate educational facilities are inherently unequal, revising the doctrine established in the ruling on Plessy v. Ferguson. This ruling was based upon the 14th Amendment, which was created to protect people from state governments passing laws that limit their freedoms, and the idea that the schools were unequal and therefore the separation was unconstitutional. The ruling was unanimous, 9-1. Plessy v. Ferguson was overturned. Brown v. Board changed America forever. Schools were no longer legally separated, paving the way for the civil rights movement. Victory for equality and a turning point in American history.
The ruling on both Brown v. Board of Education and Swan v. CMS Board of Education were both unanimous, being 9-0 decisions. These unanimous decisions started and continued the Supreme Court's role in ending segregation in the United States. In addition, in the reasoning for both cases, the Supreme Court cited the 14th Amendment and the protection guarantees for state governments. In addition, the facts of these two cases are similar, mostly due to the fact that both these cases increased the Supreme Court's ability to intervene in civil rights cases. Brown v. Board expanded the power of the Supreme Court because till this point the court mostly allowed the states to pass laws enforcing racial segregation, and Swan v. Charlotte-Mecklenburg expanded the Supreme Court's ability to intervene in delegation of schools. Most importantly, these two cases ensured that the Supreme Court would have the power to continue to intervene in order to promote civil rights. Now, let's look at our memory tool, Brown. B for Black students, R for rejected from schools, O for overturned Plessy, W for writ of certiorari, and lastly N for NAACP, meaning that in the decision for this case, the court found that Plessy v. Ferguson did not apply to this case because the case was originally about transportation and should not be concerned in Brown v. Board. NAACP, which helped pay and raise public support for the case. The NAACP argued that the segregation in schools violated in the Equal Protection Clause.
Civil rights and the Supreme Court have had and will continue to have an immense impact on all aspects of life in the United States, especially civil rights. For this reason, it is important to analyze how the court has intervened in civil rights in the past to attempt to understand how this intervention will evolve in the future in the American attempt to finally achieve equality.